expertise and time on our advisory and other committees, as well as community care, service groups and agencies, healthcare institutions, and so much more. Particularly in the past year, volunteers have been saving grace for shut-ins, compromised and elderly by shopping, running errands, touching base by phone, and so much more. Our volunteers are one of the major strengths of the community of Scugog, demonstrating what a caring community we have. And on behalf of council and staff of Scugog, we thank you. So in this moment of silence, I hope you will take a moment to silently thank our many volunteers, as well as all of the people in Scugog Township and elsewhere that are following the rules voluntarily. We'll now observe a moment of silence. Thank you. I'll now call on our clerk, Becky Jamieson, to give us the rules of procedure for tonight and call the roll call.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, for your information, Sandra Fry will be recording the minutes in eScribe this evening and conducting the votes. I will now conduct a roll call to ascertain which members of council are present. Mayor Drew is present. Councillor Watton, are you present?
I am present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall?
Yes, I'm here, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guido?
I'm present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ross?
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kiesenbrink?
Present.
Thank you. And Councillor Brown?
Present.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I can confirm that we have quorum for this meeting. I will now list the staff who are present in alphabetical order. Adam DeBecke. Our CAO, Ken Nix. Kevin Heritage. Laura Barda. Lori Bowers. Our Fire Chief, Mark Burney, is joining. He just hasn't signed on quite yet. Nicola Alston, Robin Prentice, and Sandra Fry. Is there any member of staff present whom I did not mention? Also in attendance this evening are a number of consultants and delegates who will be introduced shortly. As in previous electronic meetings, I will now review the rules for this meeting. Please mute your microphone while not talking. This will avoid any background noise that may occur where you are and will avoid any echo of the audio. Also, please ensure you are in a quiet place to limit background noise when you speak. If you would like to speak, please use the hand raise function in the meeting. The mayor will then call upon you when it's your turn. For members of council, if you leave your computer, please let the mayor know so that quorum can continue to be met. When moving or seconding a motion, please use the hand raise function in the meeting and the mayor will announce who the mover and seconder are. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the township's YouTube channel. We will be using electronic voting process during tonight's meeting. At the appropriate time, Sandra will announce that the voting is open and council members will be asked to make a selection. Once everyone has voted, Sandra will announce that the vote is closed. If for any reason a council member is unable to vote, please announce your vote verbally and say in favor or against. If the electronic voting system stops working for any reason, we will revert back to the mayor asking each council member for their vote. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That concludes my opening statement.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move to announcements. I'd like to have an opening announcement, and I'll call on other councillors. Please raise your hand if you have an announcement tonight. So the pandemic is continuing, and we understand people are tired of it. People are angry, fed up, and are desperate to see family and friends. However, COVID case numbers are rising. Most people are following the regulations and laws that are attempting to keep everyone safe, but Some people are frustrated and purposely flaunt the rules, which puts us all in danger and puts our staff in a difficult position as they do their jobs. Our staff, including bylaw officers, are only trying to follow the law and help keep you safe. People are dying from this virus. It is not a hoax or a conspiracy, and by ignoring the rules, you may be infecting others, including your own family and your friends. There have been instances of group protests in some municipalities in the south part of the region because of the restrictions. Whether it is a protest or other social reasons for getting people together, these gatherings are helping to transmit the COVID virus and are endangering your loved ones. The provincial measures are in place because our health system is maxed out, as evidenced in our community with the temporary closing of our New Life Centre at the hospital, and non-emergency appointments with our healthcare providers are cut back to allow our providers to be redeployed. Lakeridge Health Oshawa, like other hospitals, have canceled elective surgeries, procedures, and services. Yes, people are stressed and tired, but we have to remember that those people who are out there serving the public at their own risk are stressed and tired too. The increasing infection rate is contributing to the lockdown lasting much longer. Frontline workers, including our staff, are not out to infringe on people's rights. They are trying to help keep people safe. So when you are out for essential items or reasons or are on the phone doing business, please be friendly, kind, and thankful for those people in our healthcare system, our cashiers, our essential workers, including our staff, who are putting themselves at risk for your benefit and to put food on their own tables. Our sincere appreciation to all these folks who go out to work each day, treating the people they serve and work with respect, while concerned about their own and their families' health and well-being. I know people are excited about the coming vaccines. However, it is still frustrating trying to get an appointment for vaccine due to vaccine availability. Vaccine is not always delivered from the province to Durham when it is expected, and the province is not getting supplies from the federal government. However, I continue to encourage everyone to get a vaccine when they have the opportunity. Having at least your first dose offers some protection. And remember, up to 2 weeks after your dose, and particularly your last dose, you are still somewhat vulnerable. Please consider this in your day-to-day decisions. I implore you to follow the rules. If we can be patient for another few weeks, we might see the curve flatten and trend down, and we can start to get back to normal. Otherwise, we face more and more shutdowns and restrictions. A sincere appreciation to all those many people who are following the rules, staying at home and keeping safe, volunteering in so many ways, shopping for necessities locally, being kind and respectful. Community isn't canceled, and together we will get through this. And I'll ask if there's any other councillors who wish to make an announcement. Councillor Watton, did you have one? Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have just a couple from the region. The first one is to advise that the Durham Region Transit are holding a couple of public information centers, April 27th and April 29th. Further details and the presentation boards can be found at durhamregiontransit.com, PICS, as in Public Information Centers, plural. And they're basically looking for feedback and sharing what and how the Durham services will evolve into 2025. So that's my first announcement, Madam Mayor. My second one is that the Envision Durham, if you recall, began in 2018, and it was to inform the new regional official plan and thereby eventually the SCUGOG official plan. It has evolved to the point where there are policy directions contained in it to to speak to the 7 categories. So the prosperous economy, healthy communities, supportive infrastructure, a vibrant urban system, a thriving rural system, the protected greenland system, and the connected transportation system. Each of those categories have proposed policy directions included in them. It is an extensive document, but certainly if there's interest in any of those categories, you would be well advised to go to them and follow up on it and read the directions and provide input. Input is being accepted until the 30th of June. So, and if anyone has any questions about that, they can email, but the document and that can be found at durham.ca/envision Durham. And if I may, Madam Mayor, I have one further announcement, and that's just to speak to the Port Perry 150. With the current lockdown, it kind of gives us pause, but I must say that the momentum is actually building, and we are looking at creative ways to be able to celebrate this special day. And throughout the course of the summer, we will have social media platforms, the township website, the Port Perry 150 Facebook page. All those medias will provide further information, and I won't go into them now. I do expect to provide a memo to council kind of giving a brief background and summary of where we're at for next week. So thank you, Madam Mayor. That concludes my comments and announcements for today.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watton. I have a couple more announcements, but I'll see if any Councillor Kiesebrink.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just was in Blackstock, and the Wellness Shield Pharmacy has a note on their door that they're going to be having the vaccine available in the pharmacy. So for people who are in that area, have a look there. That's going to be very handy for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Where was that, Councillor Kiesebrink? Which pharmacy?
It's the Wellness Shield Pharmacy. It's right beside the convenience store in Blackstock, across from the pizza place.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other councillors? Okay, seeing none. Just some good news here. Scugog residents that need a ride to their vaccination appointment at the Scugog Community Recreation Centre Clinic can use the Durham Region Transit on-demand bus service to get to their appointment for free. Ontario Power Generation has generously stepped forward supporting this initiative to temporarily fund the rides to assist in getting Durham residents their vaccination in an effort to assist the province's vaccine rollout. The on-demand service will pick you up at any bus stop or in front of your home in the rural areas. It will then take you to the temporary stop at the Scugog Community Recreation Centre entrance for your scheduled vaccination appointment. I'd like to thank OPG for providing funding that will assist residents across the region to access vaccination appointments. As well, thank you to Durham Region Transit, who addressed the issue of dropping passengers at the bus stop at Reach and Old Simcoe and has implemented a temporary stop at the SCRC entrance during the vaccination clinic. Book your on-demand trip using DRT on-demand app, visiting durhamregiontransit.com, or by calling a booking agent at 1-866-247-0055. Direct service to clinics is available during clinic hours only. And my last announcement, I'd like to send out a big thank you to our parks team for their quick response and work throughout the weekend. Friday at 4 p.m., the province announced changes to the provincial orders that resulted in the closure of playgrounds and most outdoor recreation amenities beginning at midnight. This announcement came at the end of the regular workday, and staff had very little time to react, install signage and barrier, and issue public notices. Both management and park staff worked many extra hours to ensure everything was in place as quickly as possible. To add to the challenges, the province changed the order, allowing dog parks to open, and again on Sunday to allow for playgrounds to remain open. We understand there was much confusion over the weekend and are proud of our staff for their dedication and quick response to the rapidly changing orders from the province. A sincere thank you on behalf of council and the community. And I understand that our CAO, Mr. Nix, has something along that line as well. Mr. Nix?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to echo what you just mentioned about thanking our staff who dealt with last-minute surprises and the changing provincial orders over the weekend that ensured the township complies in the efforts to keep our community safe. It's never easy to do one thing and think you're complete and then have to reverse course. However, staff did what was needed and continue to do what is needed to keep our community safe. Although this is the most recent example of staff going above and beyond during the pandemic, I would like to thank staff from across the organization for what they do to serve our residents. Workload is increasing and constantly changing. Staff are busier than ever since the pandemic began, and everyone has a role in providing the services to our community. I know everyone is doing their best to manage the increasing and changing demands, so I would like to add my heartfelt thanks to the staff across Scugog. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nix. And of course, our staff many of them are working from home and struggling with online learning for their children and the stresses of this pandemic and also getting their work done. So our sincere thanks to all staff. And now I'll ask if any other staff have announcements. I know Ms. Bowers, Director Bowers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I can just get confirmation that you can hear me okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm speaking, just assisting our Chief Bernie, who's away this evening, and as the township's emergency information officer is my capacity with our emergency control group. I bring you a bit of an update, just following what you're saying. Thank you very much for your kind words. And there was a lot of work happening over the weekend, and we are part of such a great team, and I just want to express my thanks as well. In Scugog, according to the Durham Region Tracker, we have a total of 44 active cases in Scugog, 39 in home isolation, 5 in hospital, including 1 in the ICU. And I thank you for expressing your words with regards to our diligence in remaining following those guidelines and following these orders. So today, the township announced public notice with regards to the extended orders and the strengthening of limitations on outdoor recreation and those impacts to Scugog. And very quickly, I'll just highlight that we are cognizant of the fact that as the warmer weather comes upon us, families are looking to get out and enjoy some exercise and some fresh air, and they may do so as long as they follow the guidelines in Scugog. Our parks and trails will remain open for walk-through only purposes. Our playgrounds and our off-leash dog park, which were originally closed, were quickly reopened as per the orders on Sunday. And we do appreciate that those are important amenities. And we trust that people respect the orders and remind them that.
I really, I'm not very hungry.
Excuse me, somebody has their microphones on. Please turn off your microphones. Thank you. Please go ahead, Director Bowers.
Thank you, that's better. Just saying that our playgrounds and off-leash dog park are now open as amenities, and we trust that everybody will follow the rules. And just a reminder that equipment is not sanitized. And the health department does remind that wearing a mask outdoors is important, as you may come in contact with somebody, for example, walking along a trail. You may have to pass somebody in a tight space. So remember that your mask is important even outdoors. Unfortunately, some of the following areas are closed: the skate park, tennis court, soccer field, basketball courts, disc golf course, our outdoor fitness equipment, our picnic sites and picnic tables at this time, and our boat launch. And I just want to briefly speak to the boat launch, as it was a decision of the emergency control group today and was discussed at great length. The boat launch is obviously a very important amenity locally, but it does have the ability to unfortunately attract groups and crowds. And at this time, we just felt it was prudent for us to maintain that the launch itself is closed, but we will reassess the closure of the launch of the boat launches in the next few weeks, and certainly as weather starts to warm and as we start to understand how people are reacting and receiving the new set of orders and guidelines. And it does assist our very small complement of municipal enforcement officers. So at this time, those are the rules, and we do encourage you to please visit scugog.ca/COVID-19 for all the updates. And additionally, if you do see contravention of the orders and you would like to report it, we would ask that you report through our bylaw office. Their email is bylaw@scugog.ca or by phoning 905-985-7346 extension 121. We are looking to support each other. We are looking to ensure that neighbors are being neighborly. Our enforcement officers are a small complement and will be out to assist. And they'll be out to remind and educate folks on the orders and the guidelines if they do find that people are just forgetting one rule or the other. But we do ask that you do respect the officers if they do need to speak with you. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. That's valuable information for us, and hope everybody is taking it all in. Any other announcements from staff? Seeing none, we will now move on to public meetings. This portion of the meeting has been set aside for a public meeting under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider an application for a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by B. Clark of Clark Consulting Services on behalf of S. and K. O'Connor for the property located at 13751 Highway 7 and 12. The purpose of this public meeting is to obtain the views and comments of the public. No decision will be made at this public meeting. It is important that the public express their views either in person or in writing prior to decisions being made by the Council of the Township of Scugog. The notification of this public meeting provided residents with options on how to be added to this meeting. However, written comments can still be submitted to the Township's planning staff at any time prior to the passing of the implementing bylaw. Everyone in this virtual public meeting has the opportunity to speak. Please be considerate of the acknowledged speaker by refraining from speaking into your microphone at the same time. While you may agree or disagree with the speaker, please refrain from audible responses and respect each speaker. To ensure that all of those who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, speakers should limit their comments to 5 minutes and keep comments as brief and to the point as possible. Prior to speaking, please clearly state and spell your name and provide your property address for records purposes. You are encouraged to provide your comments in writing also, so that staff can ensure that they are accurately recorded and appropriately considered. If you do not speak at this public meeting or provide written comments before Council makes a decision on this application, you may not be entitled to appeal Council's decision or be added as a party to a hearing by the local planning appeal tribunal, unless the tribunal determines there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you would like to be notified of the decision on these matters, please provide written notice of your desire to receive notice. The notice for this public meeting was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. I'll now ask Robin Prentice to provide information regarding the applications and an overview of the staff information report included in this agenda. Ms. Prentice, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Robin Prentice, and I am the Manager of Planning with the Township of Scugog. As the Mayor mentioned, the purpose of this public meeting is to present the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and obtain comments from Council and the public. An application for a zoning bylaw amendment was received by Clark Consulting Services on behalf of the property owners S. and K. O'Connor for the property located at 13751 Highway 7 and 12. The application was deemed complete for processing purposes on January 13th, 2021. Next slide, please. The subject property is located on the east side of Highway 7 and 12, south of the intersection at Regional Road 21 and Highway 7A in the south end of Manchester. The purpose of the proposed amendment is to rezone the property to Highway Commercial C4, with some exceptions, to also permit a self-storage facility in addition to the range of other uses permitted in the C4 zone, and to remove a motor vehicle wash or car wash as a permitted use since there are no municipal services in this area. There is no specific development proposal at this time. The intent is to rezone the property to add more options for future development of the lands. A site plan application would be required in the future to facilitate any development on this property in accordance with the proposed zoning. A number of studies would be required as part of that required site plan application in order to demonstrate that the proposed use could be accommodated on the site. There is nothing that requires a landowner to submit a site plan application at the same time as a rezoning application. Any proposed development will be serviced by a proposed private water well and septic system. Next slide, please. These lands are located within the Greenbelt Protected Countryside and are designated hamlet in the township's official plan. An objective of the hamlet designation is to provide opportunities for small-scale commercial, industrial, and tourism-related uses that are compatible with the character and scale of the hamlet. Commercial uses serving the hamlet, surrounding rural areas, and supporting tourism in the area are permitted. Next slide, please. Outlined on this slide are all of the permitted uses that are included in the township zoning bylaw number 1414 for the highway commercial or C4 zone. As you can see, there is a range of highway commercial uses that are currently permitted in the C4 zone. Next slide, please. The property is currently zoned highway commercial C4, highway commercial with an exception, C4-2, and future development. The draft zoning bylaw is proposing to rezone the lands to C4 with 2 exceptions. This zoning would permit a range of the highway commercial uses that were outlined on the previous slide with 2 exceptions. Staff asked to remove the car wash permission because there are no municipal services available in this area to support such a use. The applicant has also requested that a self-storage facility be permitted in addition to the C4 uses, and staff have limited this proposed use to the rear portion of the property. No objections or concerns were identified by township staff or any other external agency regarding the proposed zoning. To date, we have received written comments from one member of the public who has signed up to speak at tonight's meeting. Their concerns relate to the proposed self-storage facility use, drainage and flooding, impacts of development on neighboring properties, and process with respect to not having the site plan application submitted with the rezoning application. Notice of this virtual public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, with notice provided to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property and advertised in the local newspapers and posted on the township's website. A sign has also been placed on the property to notify the public of the application. A future staff report will include an analysis of any comments received tonight, together with any subsequent written comments, and make a recommendation on the application to council. Madam Mayor, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have. You may be on mute, Madam Mayor.
And you're absolutely right, I was. I'll now ask the applicant's planning consultant, Jacqueline Mann, to present information regarding this application on behalf of the applicant. Ms. Mann, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, members of council and township staff. Thank you, Robin, for your very concise presentation, and I'll do my best not to be repetitive. I do have some slides and we'll probably go through them a little bit quicker than I was expecting. My name is Jacqueline Mann. I'm a registered professional planner with Clark Consulting Services, and Mr. Sean O'Connor, one of the landowners, is also in attendance to answer any questions. The intent of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to add one additional land use, self-storage facility, to the list of permitted uses in the highway commercial zone for the subject lands, and specifically in the back portion of the subject lands. The only other change is, as Robin indicated, that the motor wash land use would be dropped and prohibited from use on this site. If you can go to the next slide, please. This first slide shows the subject lands, which are in red, and then it shows some vistas. I don't know if you can see them clearly, sort of driving north. So the bottom slide shows the various uses that happen in this strip of land that's in the southern portion of the hamlet of Manchester. So you can see there's car repair shops, garages, there's a motel, rural residential uses, agricultural uses, and a restaurant at the very north side. So these are all different types of highway commercial uses that you see in this area. They're typical highway commercial uses and provide services for the local and regional population. So I would expect that the proposed addition of a self-storage facility is compatible to the type of uses that we're seeing there right now, and compatible in a highway commercial zone. Next slide, please. This slide shows the Scugog official plan, and again, this reiterates that this is a hamlet designation. Hamlets are locations where all levels of planning policy direct non-farm rural development. They provide opportunities for small-scale commercial, industrial, and tourism-related uses that are compatible with the character and scale of the hamlet. As the previous slide demonstrated, the proposed addition of a self-storage facility is in keeping with the scale and the character of this particular area of the hamlet of Manchester. Next slide, please. The third slide shows the zoning schedule. So you can see that the subject lands are in the southern portion of the hamlet of Manchester. And this has already been covered, but this demonstrates, one thing it demonstrates is that one thing the hamlet is trying to do is create backlot development, not just strip development. And that's one reason why they try to consolidate land uses in these designated hamlet areas. So the backlot area, as you can see all the way through the hamlet, it's something they're trying to fill in for an efficient development pattern and to stay away from a non-efficient strip development pattern. I also want to point out that there's a water course to the north of the lands, and that water course is zoned environmental protection. Next slide, please. This slide you've already seen. This shows the list of land uses that are permitted in the highway commercial zone. So if you own a piece of land zoned highway commercial, these are the land uses that you can develop if you demonstrate as in site plan that they work on the site. Examples of land use that could be developed on the site, for example, are a building supply outlet, banquet hall, mobile home sales, or a shopping center. Zoning as a tool works to predetermine compatible land use options. The highway commercial zone permits many different land use options that are compatible in a highway commercial area. So a landowner may amend, I guess this is to do with process, a landowner may amend the permitted land uses through a zoning bylaw amendment process. In this case, the proposed amendment is to add self-storage facility to the list of permitted uses in the highway commercial zone for the subject lands. This adds on additional future development opportunity for that land. And then, as Robin mentioned, the car wash will not be permitted as the water use is too intense for this site. Next slide, please. Drainage has been something that was raised of an area of concern by adjacent landowners. So the next few slides take a look at the existing drainage on the subject lands. So this slide shows the topography of the land, which shows that it gently slopes to the northwest towards the existing water course, which you can see is the little blue line just north of the subject land's northern boundary. The hatched area is land that has systematic tile fields installed. So that's the farmland that has tile fields in it. The fields work to let water better infiltrate the soil. This reduces water pooling and slows down overland water flow and works to reduce the impact on natural drainage outlets. So overland water flow, which is draining into the Nanquan River watershed. Next slide, please. we're getting to the last slide. This slide shows drainage based on soil conditions, and the drainage on the subject lands is identified as well drained, and the green area, is around the water course to the north, is defined as imperfectly drained. So the soil conditions create poor drainage in that area. It's also, the green area pretty much has been zoned environmental protection. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. This is the last slide. Oh, sorry. Can you go back one? Thank you. The last slide shows detail of the northwestern corner of the subject lands. It's evident that the water course to the north has been altered, which may contribute to some drainage areas that have been raised in that area. I just wanted to point out, you can see how the northern boundary, so the water draining from the subject lands is going northwest, and just to demonstrate kind of where that boundary is. Next slide, please. So future development will be subject to site plan, and drainage will be assessed at that time, as a drainage and grading plan would be required. It should also be noted that no development is permitted within 30 meters of the EP zone. I should have said that when the other slide was up, sorry. In light of the existing topography, watershed boundaries, drainage capacity of the soils, existing tile system, and environmental protection zone, it's unlikely that future development will impact the existing drainage conditions. As outlined above, any future development would be subject to site plan control to ensure that regulatory requirements would be met. In conclusion, the proposed addition of a self-storage facility as a permitted land use meets provincial, regional, and local planning policy, and in my professional planning opinion, is compatible and appropriate development at this location. So that concludes my development. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, Sean and I are happy to address them.
Thank you, Ms. Mann. Questions from council on either of the presentations or the associated staff report? Councillor Kiesebring.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Mann, and for your presentation, and to Ms. Prentice. I was speaking with a Clarington real estate agent, and he was working on developing zoning for a property because a person purchasing the property wanted to know that it could be zoned a particular way before they would purchase it. Part of the comments in the proposal speak to the applicant waiting until there's a specific intended use and getting the zoning at that time. I'm just wondering if perhaps Mr. O'Connor is making this decision now in order to make the land workable for a sale or a development, or just wondering if you could perhaps answer that question that's been posed in the comment section.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Well, I think there's no specific proposal on at this time for development of the site, as far as I know, and Sean can elaborate on that if he has any further information. I think he sees this as a land use opportunity for this piece of land. He can increase the opportunities and then the potential value of this land for future development.
Okay, and further, you were speaking with respect to efficiency and not having a strip approach versus more of a dense approach. And am I correct in understanding from the presentation that the added use of the self-storage facility would only be permitted in the back portion of the property? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And further, through you, Madam Mayor, if there were to be either Mr. O'Connor or someone that he would, develop with or sell it to in the future, if they were to come forward with a specific self-storage facility, there would still be a site plan required at that time, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Mm-hmm. And further to the comments received in the report, with respect to the heritage value of the location of the business being in the gateway portion of our community, Mr. Director Heritage, would it be safe to say that there could be some requests for the design and the presentation of the storage facility to be done in such a way as to reflect the heritage nature of our community?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, that the design issue would be taken into consideration when a site plan application is submitted for review and approval.
Further, through you, Madam Mayor, Director Heritage, previously at one of our other councils, we talked about having applications as a part of the process submitted to our heritage and also one other committee. I'm trying to find my notes here. Oh, Accessibilities Committee. I didn't see any comments from those groups in this application. Is that something that could they perhaps have the application circulated to them prior to this coming back to council, just in case they have any thoughts or comments?
Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Typically, we circulate applications to the Heritage Committee that are within the Heritage District. And as you know, this is not within the Heritage District. It's on Highway 712.
Okay, that makes sense.
Excuse me, with respect to the Accessibility Committee, would that be at the site plan applications that they would have some input?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead, Councillor Keesbrink.
Thank you. That completes my questions, and I appreciate the report and the presentation.
Hey, thank you very much. Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I went to hit my microphone and hit my hand up button instead. A question I have is the self-storage units, I believe, are also in our M1, M2 zonings. And the question I have is, I think there's a few things that are kind of duplicated in the M1, M2 zonings. That's the industrial zonings. Is there any other uses that would be carrying in with the self-storage from the industrial zonings with this application?
Ms. Prentice?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, are you asking if we're adding any further uses that are seen in an M1 or M2 zone?
That's correct, yes.
I'd have to go back through the zones to compare which uses are currently permitted in M1 and what's in the commercial zone or the C4 zone. The only additional new use being introduced that's not currently in the C4 zone in our parent zoning bylaw is the self-storage facility. And I should note that because outdoor storage is not permitted outside of the M2 zone, any self-storage facility would be limited to indoor storage.
For you, Madam Mayor, thank you. That was going to be my follow-up question was, would it permit outdoor storage? But that answers that. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, did you? Yes, there you are. There's your hand.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor. Is it self-storage, if that's what we're looking at here? And I have to wonder why we wouldn't put this in the industrial park first, but I guess this comes when it comes. Self-storage, does that mean more traffic on an already busy road, or what? Or have you done any traffic studies, or what can you report on your findings that way?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's Robin here. Typically, self-storage facilities are low traffic generators. So you don't see a lot of traffic just because it is sporadic when they do come to the site. It's not a regular basis. They don't come every day. It's sporadically that you come to your storage unit to take things in and put things, or take things out and put things in. So the MTO would have to approve any entrance approval, obviously, and they have not required a traffic study as part of this rezoning, but they have made it clear that any future development or as part of a site plan application would require a traffic study. So that would be reviewed as part of site plan approval.
Okay, thank you. And the residents' concerns, page 8 of 9, and I quote, would exacerbate existing flooding problems. So I understand that you've got at least one neighbor who says there are flooding concerns in that area, and you're saying that there aren't. Has there been any interchange between the two, you and the people that are complaining about the fact that there might be a water problem here? I guess I'm asking the presenters that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to know if Sean O'Connor, the landowner, is on, if he wouldn't mind addressing that.
Hi, Madam Mayor, councillors, good evening, Sean O'Connor. As you heard from Jacqueline, that there is an issue, but from my observation, the drainage ditch, it's in perfectly drained area, and it's a ditch that's been neglected over many years. There's trees falling over, bridges fallen into the ditch, so the water flow is not heading north as it should. And it's a great example just to see the stewardship of our land, in the fact that if you go to the corner, the northwest corner, south of Haggins, you will see none to very little sheet erosion. And this is on bare soil. And we have bare soil right at this point because of the archaeological study that had to be done. And many other times you would see a crop left or something to hold the soil from moving. But that's, I hope that helped explain your question.
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, you'll forgive me if I don't quite follow you. So you're saying that there is not an existing, or was not an existing flooding problem, that there might have been some modifications made to change the drainage, but it just sounds like one guy saying it floods back there and the other guy saying, no, well, no, it doesn't. Now, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but maybe you can clear that up for me.
No, I believe you're right, Councillor. I think it's something you need to see with your own eyes. The drainage, the ditch that should be open and let the water flow has been neglected over many years, and there's trees falling over top of it, and there's a bridge that's fallen down into the drainage ditch. So, but with the tile drains in place, you know, there's a lot less subsurface water going anywhere. It's draining through the tile drains that go directly to the north at Rose Street. If that helps.
And then through you, Madam Mayor, then I did ask this initially, have you spoken to anybody who has concerns about this? Because I understand there are people, one for sure, and maybe more, I'm not sure, but have you talked to those people directly and maybe suggested that there could be a solution worked out between the two of you, or three of you, or however many?
Mr. O'Connor?
No, we have not spoke.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further, Councillor Brown?
No, that's great. Thanks very much, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McDougall, you thought of another question?
Actually, Madam Mayor, I left my hand up from before, but I did have another question. A question I have, and I believe it would be for Mr. Alston. The area that we're looking at incorporating into the hamlet, is that already zoned? It's mentioned that it's agricultural now. Is that already zoned to be in the hamlet, or is this an additional area out of the Greenbelt added into the hamlet?
Ms. Prentice?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. No, this land is already within the hamlet boundaries. We're not expanding any boundaries. We were not necessarily allowed to do that through a zoning bylaw amendment application. So these lands are already within the hamlet designation of Manchester, and that is recognized through the Greenbelt plan process. And they are zoned currently commercial highway, or sorry, highway commercial and future development.
Okay, very good. And then one question for Mr. O'Connor, if I might, Madam Mayor.
Yes, please go ahead.
Mr. O'Connor, it's Councillor McDougall. My question is, right now you've indicated that currently the land is tile drained to the north towards Rose Street. Would the development be able to have the drainage continue in that direction if it's developed?
Councillor McDougall, that is a question that we'd have to have an advisor answer at this point.
Ms. Mann, are you able to answer that, or Ms. Prentice?
I would, through you, Madam Mayor, there is tiling that is in part of the land that, depending where a development would be proposed, that is already has tiles in it. I guess the main point of my presentation was if there are, I guess, flooding issues that have occurred, the adjacent landowner has, but it's hard to see how that is coming from the adjacent farmer's field. That would be exacerbating that situation. In any new development, we'd have to do we'd have to demonstrate that development is not going to exacerbate drainage onto the adjacent land in any way.
Further, Councillor McDougall?
No, that's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Watton? Councillor Keesebrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to qualify. My question would be for our staff, that what is before us today is not the approval for any particular building. It's the approval by definition that that use could occur on the property, but how that actually happens would have to come through a site plan where there would have to be designs and drainage and grading would all have to be provided in evidence before that actual act could occur. Is that a correct understanding, Mr. Heritage?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see no further questions. Just like to ask one again about the drainage. You said that that there's a problem with the ditch with trees falling over it and so on and so forth. I don't know where this ditch is, but whose responsibility is it, and will it be cleaned up?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the ditch, that water course is, I think in one of the slides, there was a green area zoned environmental protection. That area was the ditch or water course area, and that is fully on the adjacent property. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. No further questions from council. We have one member of the public who has requested to speak to this application, and I welcome Steve Susaurus to ask your questions. And please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record, then go ahead with your comments and questions. Steve, please go ahead.
Hi there. I just want to make sure first that you can actually hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so my name is Steve Zanzuris. I am the owner of Hagen's Chicken Barbecue, 13801 Highway 12, also 13873 Highway 12, also 14025 Highway 12, and 1205 Highway 7A, and 1209 Highway 7A. First, I'd like to say hello to Madam Mayor and the councillors. It's not very often that I get to talk to you guys. And so today, I just wanted to, well, originally I was going to quickly just go over what I had written, but there was so much said that is just completely wrong. I don't know how long this is going to end up taking now. But, I guess the first thing I want to say is that there'd be nothing more that I would love than to see this property developed. But it needs to be developed properly, not to have detrimental effects on our property, or probably the other neighbors. I don't know if they've come forward or not, but our property is definitely going to feel the pinch here. So, and the other thing I did want to say as well that I was going to mention is I'm more than happy to have a meeting with the applicants and explain the issues more clearly if they don't understand them. But I truly am for seeing this get properly developed because we've been there for almost 70 years. And we're waiting for some stuff to start happening around there. But I truly do believe that the future may not be here yet. I guess I'll start just highlighting a couple of things. The self-storage use is certainly not compatible with this pure commercial area of, I think there's 4 of us, commercial units in this tiny little strip of Highway 12 in the hamlet, which is actually very rare to see on 3 provincial highways. So we're on the corner, 7A, 12, and 7, obviously. This use that they're proposing is a use where there is no people, no customers, and nobody working. You know, the odd time somebody drives in, but you can drive by many of these, all in industrial areas, and they are not something that the hamlet needs, or even the rural residents in the area are going to be using. It's just simply not an appropriate use for commercial, and that's probably why it's not listed in the many commercial uses. The other thing I want to note too is the way this whole thing is gone, it's kind of been like a preconceived assumption that the C4 is already there. The C4 is not already there. There's 2 properties that one of them is a little house, the little pink house, which is 1 acre, I believe, which was a version of C4 that actually went to the OMB, and that was a negotiated settlement that came out of that. And the other one is the other old house, which I believe was also C4. But other than those 2 lots that merged with the big lot behind it, the rest of it is either agricultural or future development, which is just a fancy way of saying that it's within the hamlet. So it can be rezoned because it's not part of the green belt. So I think that's pretty straightforward. The use, especially if we're going for all these C4 uses, which at some point, if we get past all these other problems, I might actually be able to support. I don't know why we need to add an industrial use on top of that. There's plenty of choices under C4. So I guess that's something future discussion. So the other thing that I want to talk about too is the flooding. A lot of the stuff that was said here is completely wrong. And I wanted to resist sending in my pictures because I didn't think this was going to be an appropriate time for it, but maybe I was wrong. But one of the councillors asked, is there flooding or is there not flooding? Well, I can show you the pictures, which will 120% show you that there is huge flooding problems. And my dad has been in this property since 1968. And I talked to him again just before this meeting to prepare. And I asked him, have you ever seen this? You know, I texted him the pictures. And he said, there's been times in the years where, you know, the little ditch is overflowed, but nothing close to what we're seeing these days. So I want to set a couple of facts that, the ones that I can remember anyways, there was a lot of them, but a couple of facts I want to set straight. So number one is whenever it was that the O'Connor brothers bought the property behind us, which is the farm. I think they bought a couple of farms there, so they've got hundreds and hundreds of acres. They quickly proceeded to put in the tile fields that we're discussing right now. When this happened, there was actually 2 outlets to these tile fields, not one. So they were actually, I don't know if this is pertinent, but you know, I guess the initial objective was to dig their pipes across our property and into the drainage ditch. When one day we saw somebody out there digging on our property, we went out there and said, what the heck's going on here? The guy goes, oh, I don't know. I thought I had permission. We said, no, nobody's talked to us about this. So the 2 outlets, one that he's talking about on the north end, kind of goes, I hopefully it doesn't go across our property because we didn't stand out there and we're referring to here actually are, yes, they are. Every year we put the bridges back where they're supposed to be, but the flooding picks them up and carries them. So that's why the bridges are out of place every year. So this year I was thinking about just throwing them away. The trees, there's a couple of trees that blew over way on the north end. They're not affecting the course of the water, and we've actually tried to get a few people to come in and clean them up, and nobody seems to want to clean them up, but we're actually working on that as well currently. And the other big one last thing, I'm going to skip through all my stuff, that everybody keeps talking about the site plan, that this is going to, oh, we're going to deal with it when the site plan comes. Well, I believe that when the site plan comes, it's going to look at this property in isolation, and it's going to say, well, you know, let's get rid of the water off this property. And they're not going to look at where that water goes, especially if it's on another property that's owned by the applicant that later comes back to our property.
Thank you, Steve. I think we're going to have to wrap it up because it's you've had 7 minutes, and appreciate your comments. And I see that Director Heritage has his hand up, and maybe he can help you out with some of your questions. Director?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to clarify the uses that are permitted in the C4 zone. There are a number of them that are also permitted in the M1 and the M2 zones. So it's not just simply looking at transposing self-storage use that's in the industrial area into the C4 commercial zone. Just as an example, what uses that are currently permitted in the M1, M2 zones are also permitted in the C4 zone: brewery, winery, building supply outlet, equipment sales, service and rental light, motor vehicle gas station, motor vehicle sales and service establishments, motor vehicle service station, recreational vehicle sales and service establishments. So there are a number of uses that are currently permitted in the industrial zones that are also permitted in the C4 zone. So it's not just solely a self-storage facility. So I just want to clarify that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to the delegate. I just have a couple of questions. The flooding you refer to, is that year-round, or is that spring runoff? I speak only because we have huge flooding on our property, and mainly it is because of a spring runoff. Does it occur, the flooding, year-round, or is it the spring runoff?
No, it's spring only, but it's bad. It's so bad that our complete south end of our parking lot is completely covered in water, unusable, and it's literally maybe 10 feet from the building. That's how bad it's gotten over the last several years, and there's really no margin of error left for this. It's already way more than it should be.
And I can fully appreciate those comments because mine is completely across my backyard as well. And if it's one thing that is a bane in my side, it is that. So I can fully appreciate that. But however, speaking of that, perhaps Mr. Heritage, can you, the Drainage Act, it does allow or direct tile drainage to go to such things as the riverbed or the area that is zoned EP. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct.
So if there was some concern about how to improve or prevent this further flooding, I mean, given that it is still spring runoff and often dependent on a lot of other factors, could more, or would an expectation be that more drainage would be put in to prevent it from creeping up onto the Higgins property?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, yes, when staff deals with a site plan application, we ensure that pre-development flows equal post-development flows. So we're not adding any more storm water to an adjacent property.
Okay, because that sounds like it is a huge concern, and given the the storms we receive and have every year, things always seem to be getting a lot worse. So I'd hate for it to impact the Hagen's building and so on. One further question, if I may, Madam Mayor. It was referenced that the property in question is not all C4, and when I look at it, I wonder if Robin or Director Heritage, you could qualify that statement, that whether it is only the two small lots and it's all been combined, or how has it come? Because I certainly was under the impression that it was all C4.
Director or Robin?
I can answer that. Madam Mayor. Thank you. It's Robin. So there was a map in Jacqueline's presentation that outlined the current zoning. So we recognize that the entire lot is not zoned C4. However, there is a large portion of it that is zoned C4. So as outlined in the zoning bylaw and the staff report, the existing zoning on the site is C4. C4-2 in a section, as well as future development. All three of those zones are currently applicable to the site.
Okay, thank you. And one further question, and then I'll relinquish the floor to the delegate. So you feel that the self-storage is not an appropriate use for a commercial area, but yet if I think, and I'm recognizing that they are different, but down the road there is boat storage, and to the south there is usually cars stored that are waiting to be repaired and so on. I wondered if you could speak to a little bit more to why you are against the self-storage. I'm struggling to figure that out.
Right, yeah. Well, to the north where the boat storage is, which it's not really boat storage, it's a marina, sales service, and they happen to store some boats there as well. But that's not their primary business. It's no different than a restaurant that has parked cars there or whatnot. So I don't know what you said about the south end. Something about the south.
Yeah, at the car repair place, and I mean, I know that there's often cars there as well, but when your reference to a restaurant, at the restaurant they don't stay overnight, but at the others they do. But and that's fine. I'm just trying to understand what it is that you're against.
The people with the cars, like it's auto repair. That's obviously allowed within the C4 zoning. There's life there. There's people coming and going all day long. There's customers, there's people that work there, there's all that kind of thing. So with the self-storage, I don't think it's appropriate for a great commercial area that's also the gateway to Port Perry, as I've said. This is 3 provincial highways. I tried to look at the map before this, and I can't find any other place where 3 provincial highways intersect. So I see this, and we've always treated it, and we've been good custodians over the years to, have a place where there's a commercial presence, where there's people coming and going, where there's life. It's a hamlet. This where, there's going to be an employee maybe that's working remotely and pushing a button to unlock the gate. It's all self-serve, and people store their stuff and they don't come back for a long, long time. And it's just every other place that you look at, they're all off a side street. They're not off the main highway for this type of use. And I don't think it's going to be a good use for the neighbors. I don't think it's going to help my property value that I think is good commercial property. To be surrounded by storage units and give it that industrial type of look. And, before you know it, it could go more industrial than commercial. And I don't think you want that for the gateway to Port Perry. And I don't want that for somebody that's owned and paid taxes and taken good care of this commercial land for, almost 70 years now.
Okay, yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just so basically, I'm understanding correctly, and I just was more curious than anything, but it's because there is no movement that you would basically see in a commercial area or expect to see in a commercial area that would occur if that self-storage was created, and that's basically in a nutshell, right?
Yeah, I guess you could put it that way.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit deeper than that, but you can summarize it.
Well, no, I'm just trying to qualify it into simple things for my head more than anybody else's. So, but I understand that then. Thank you very much for your answers, and thank you, Director Heritage and Robin as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. Councillor Kiesebrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just trying to turn my microphone on. In looking back at can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. In looking back at the presentation 9.1 and the Schedule A, there's actually two parts to the request. So all the front-facing property has a different hatching than the back-facing. And am I correct in understanding that the storage facility, the self-storage facility, is not permitted in the front-facing property that's right on the highway, but in fact is only being permitted in the back part? So it would be behind whatever other commercial businesses are developed that are right off the highway. Is that correct, Ms. Prentice?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct. We have tried to limit the self-storage permission, should it be approved, to the rear of the property, and that's why you see the two different hatchings on the proposed zoning schedule.
So in effect, if I look from a business perspective, if someone were wanting to develop the property, the self-storage is kind of like a bank, because it's regular cash flow that could then allow the development of other businesses right on the highway. Could I perhaps, Madam Mayor, I don't know about protocol because we've already passed the other part. Am I able to ask the applicant that question, or
yes,
is that passed? Okay. I'm just wondering, Mr. O'Connor, what your thoughts are. I mean, maybe you're not ready to share that yet, but I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about the way that this schedule is presented and the two different types of zoning, and what your thoughts are, and maybe just what your comments are to the questions being shared with us right now.
Mr. O'Connor.
Thank you, Councillor and Madam Mayor. At this point, it's more or less just to increase the development potential of the land. And storage is another great option. You know, I'm sure it will not be all storage. It's a large parcel of land. There is opportunity for many other aspects. There are different businesses that could be developed there. Like Steve said, it is the gateway to Port Perry. It deserves to look as good as it can and be as valuable as it can to the community.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions, Councillor Kiesebrink?
Not at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Senzouris. I was just looking at the map that was presented that Robin referred to in the original planning report, and it has a section that's denoted as future development that I believe is directly to the east of your property. Who owns that property now, for you, Madam Mayor?
I don't know whether that's appropriate to ask Councillor McDougall. That's private information. I would think I'll ask our CAO or Director Heritage if it's appropriate for someone to ask the name of a property owner. Director Heritage?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'm not aware of the owner's name on that property.
My concern is making public the owner's name.
Madam,
Mr. CAO?
Madam Mayor, I believe you're correct.
Okay, thank you. So move on, please, Councillor McDougall.
No, fair enough. My question was with regards to drainage, because that property appears to touch upon the same ditch that this current labeled as future development, that this current future development section is attached to, and that hence property may assist in removing the drainage from this property. That was my thinking. Okay, that's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, I'll try to keep this quick. I like to see people get together if they can get together. Mr. Sensuris, you suggested that you were open to just having a face-to-face with Mr. O'Connor. Did I understand you correctly, first of all?
Yes, of course. I would certainly welcome sitting down with him and having a frank chat based on facts. And like I said, I really don't want to come across here as anti-development, because that is the total opposite of what I really am. You know me a little bit, but certainly I truly would love to see this property developed. I just don't want any more water coming down on me. And to be honest with you, I don't know how it's possible to develop it and start paving and putting gravel down. The little bit of water that's getting seeped up is gonna end up going down. So to summarize, I have two major issues. One is the self-storage, which I don't think is good for any of the commercial owners there already. And the other one is the drainage. If we can some way to deal with the drainage and those two issues, I'd wholly support C4 and putting in a whole strip of other restaurants there if we can.
Mr. O'Connor, does that appeal to you at all?
Well, I think, like Steve said, development is great for the area, and we look forward to see what we can bring to it.
Okay,
thank you.
Good enough for me. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Mr. CAO, is your hand still up, or did you have a comment? Oh,
my apologies. I forgot to lower it.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Kiesebrink, be your last kick at the cat.
3 strikes, you're out, right?
Yeah, that's right.
If I could just ask Director Heritage, I believe that the Kawartha Conservation Authority, who really truly understand watershed and soil and all of the above, they have a pivotal role as well when if an actual building project were to come forward. Nothing would be passed without them weighing in on it as well. Is that correct, Director Heritage?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, if site plan application was submitted to the township, the KRCA would be circulated for their comment.
Further, Councillor Kiesebrink?
Thank you. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Okay. I don't see any other questions from council. I have a couple myself. Steve, you mentioned about it being a gateway, and I truly support that. We like to have beautiful gateways, but this is to the back of the property, and I can assure you that under site plan approval, that the view from the road would be something that would be a nice gateway to our town. So and Director Heritage, if you could comment on that, or Robin.
I can comment on that, Madam Mayor. Yes, that's why we had kind of limited the self-storage permission to the rear of the property, to ensure that any design features could be taken a look at and enhanced along the frontage itself on Highway 12. Right.
Thank you. Yeah, we truly want our entrances to town, our gateways to town, to be beautiful and inviting. To be fair, you talked about the boat storage, Steve, and yeah, it is temporary, but it's like about 8 months of the year, so it's pretty, pretty nearly a full year, so pretty permanent. The other thing I would like to say is like the flooding that you're experiencing. I mean, that could do a lot of damage to your parking lot, and bad flooding. I mean, could even get to the side of your building. I'm wondering if it would be worth your while to really have a good look at that ditch, and that would hopefully save all the problems. Like really give it a good clean out. You any comments on that?
Yeah, there's literally nothing wrong with the ditch, other than the couple of trees that have fallen over there. The ditch is the ditch. It carries the water, but when there is so much water that it's overflowing, not just a foot or two on each side of the ditch, but almost to my building, that to me is basically saying that, excuse me, that there's way too much water that is that's showing up there, and I can't see how it's possible to deal with it.
Well, I'm sure that those trees might be a bit of a dam for the ditch, and might be worth your while having a look at getting that really good clean out. Just my opinion. I'm not an engineer, but that would be my opinion. There's no further questions, so thank you for attending. And Madam Clerk, we don't have any other people registered to speak tonight?
No, we do not. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for attending and providing your input into this statutory public information meeting. Written comments can still be provided to planning staff following this meeting, and this concludes this portion of the meeting. Thank you, and we will move on to the report, and I would ask someone to move the recommendation. Could we put that up, please, Sandra?
Just one moment, Madam Mayor.
The recommendation? Okay, I'll read it. That report, DEV 2021-008 zoning bylaw amendment application Z12-2020 S&K O'Connor 13751 Highway 712, part of Lot 13, Concession 4, Ward 1 information report be received, and that staff report back to council with a recommendation on this application at the earliest opportunity. Councillor Watton moving and Councillor McDougall seconding. Questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, Recording Secretary, would you please open the vote?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I can't access the vote at this time. Do you mind calling a verbal vote?
I will. All those in favor say yes.
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 Favor.
In favor.
In favor.
Opposed, say no. Hearing none, that is carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our second public meeting. This portion of the meeting has been set aside for a public meeting under the Township's radio communication antenna system siting policy to consider an application for a telecommunication tower submitted by Forbes Brothers Limited on behalf of Rogers Communications Limited for the property located at 41 Taylor Boulevard. The purpose of this public meeting is to obtain the views and comments of the public. It is important that the public express their views either in person or in writing prior to decisions being made by the Council of the Township of Scugog. In accordance with the Federal Telecommunication Act, Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada is the approval authority responsible for regulating radio telecommunication facilities. Applicants are required to consult with local municipalities as the land use authority. Everyone in this virtual public meeting has the opportunity to speak. Please be considerate of the acknowledged speaker by refraining from speaking into your microphone at the same time. While you may agree or disagree with the speaker, please refrain from audible responses and respect each speaker. To ensure that all those who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, speakers should limit their comments to 5 minutes and keep comments as brief and to the point as possible. Prior to speaking, please clearly state and spell your name and provide your property address for records purposes. The notice for this public meeting was given in accordance with the township's radio communication antenna system siting policy. I will now ask Nicola Alston to provide information regarding the applications and an overview of the staff information report included in this agenda. Ms. Alston, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Nicola Alston, and I am a planner with the Township of Scugog. Next slide, please. The purpose of this public meeting is to present information regarding the proposed telecommunication tower at 41 Taylor Boulevard. The public meeting is required as per the Township's radio communication antenna system siting policy. An application for a telecommunication tower was received from Forbes Brothers on behalf of Rogers Communication, and they are proposing to install a 70-meter tall, self-supporting or steel lattice style telecommunication tower and related radio and wireless equipment at 41 Taylor Boulevard. Next slide, please. The subject property is located on the north side of Taylor Boulevard, south of Reach Street, and east of Highway 12. Next slide, please. The tower is proposed to be located towards the northeast corner of the property at 41 Taylor and will be set back about 114 meters from the access point at Taylor Boulevard. The tower and related fence compound will be 15 by 15 meters and will contain the tower structure and walk-in equipment cabinet, which will be placed on a reinforced concrete slab. The proposed tower will enhance wireless voice and data coverage and capacity for the areas surrounded by Reach Street, Highway 7 and 12, Simcoe Street, and Scugog Street and Highway 7A. The proposed site is located within the urban boundary of Port Perry and is designated general industrial by the township's official plan and zoned general industrial by zoning bylaw 14-14. The lands in the vicinity of this proposal also have industrial designations and zones. As required by the federal government and the township's system siting policy, an open house was hosted by the applicant in January 2020. 2 members of the public attended the open house along with members of council. Notice of this virtual public meeting was provided in accordance with the system siting policy, with notice provided to all property owners within 300 meters of the property and advertised in the local newspaper and posted on the township's website. The 2 members of the public who attended the open house were also notified. Co-location and rooftop deployment are the first locations considered when looking for tower siting. In order for site sharing to be considered possible, existing telecommunication sites and other tall structures must be located within the search area prescribed by the network's planners and engineers. These locations must also provide adequate deployment height and structural capacity to hold additional equipment. There are a number of co-locations that were either previously considered by the applicants or suggested at the open house. The first is the Bell Mobility site, which is within about 1 kilometer of the proposed Rogers location. This 50-meter high Bell Mobility Tower is located just west of the Walmart store, and it fronts onto Scugog Line 6. This site is actually about 740 meters southeast of the proposed Rogers location. To co-locate with the existing Bell site, Rogers would need to install their equipment below 42 meters, which is the lowest antenna height Bell currently has in place. The possible location of the Rogers equipment under Bell's infrastructure would likely result in a total overall elevation height of 309 meters, which would factor into the ground elevation and the infrastructure height on the tower. The total overall elevation at the 41 Taylor site would be 336.4 meters, so there'd be a difference in height of 27.4 meters. The Bell Mobility Tower was disqualified by the applicant as a feasible co-location option due to the lack of adequate height to meet the target coverage area, which could result in the need for additional towers elsewhere. The second location, which was suggested at the open house, is approximately 1.5 kilometers from 41 Taylor Boulevard, on the future hotel site off of Highway 7A on the Sunnybray Golf Course lands. This location would have a significant impact on the coverage area required by Rogers. And a tower at this location would not adequately address the coverage gap that has been identified. The next locations are about 1.2 to 1.4 kilometers northeast of Taylor Boulevard. And sorry, Ms. Clark, could you please go to the next slide? Thank you. So these locations, as previously stated, are 1.2 to 1.4 kilometers northwest of 41 Taylor Boulevard on the low-rise buildings on the southeast and southwest corners of Reach and Old Simcoe. This area is outside of the search area prescribed by Rogers, and the buildings located at these corners do not provide adequate height for the rooftop antenna to achieve Rogers' target coverage area. Another suggested location is about 1.4 kilometers southeast from 41 Taylor on the existing water tower, which is on Silver Street or just south of the track across from the Port Perry High School. The applicant advised that this location would again have significant impact on the desired coverage area. There is a proposed Region of Durham water tower, which will be located on the ridge to the east of Taylor Boulevard. The region advised that co-location on regional water towers is not currently permitted due to concerns regarding the potable water supply and ongoing tower maintenance. The region also confirmed that they would not be agreeable to this co-location. Township staff have reviewed this tower proposal in accordance with the location and siting criteria as set out by the township's policy, and note the following. There are currently no opportunities to co-locate or use existing infrastructure for this purpose. However, other telecom hardware proposals should be permitted to be co-located on the proposed tower if feasible. Self-support steel lattice towers are typically seen throughout industrial landscapes. It is staff's opinion that this type of tower is appropriate for the industrial area. The tower site avoids significant natural features, vegetation, and hazard lands. The proposed tower maximizes distances from residential areas, as the tower is approximately 710 meters away from the nearest residential property. The township's policy notes to maximize setbacks from residential areas, but no minimum setbacks are noted in the policy or required by the federal government. The tower also maximizes distance from existing public and institutional facilities such as schools, hospitals, community centers, daycares, and seniors' residences. And safe vehicle access will be provided from a proposed access driveway from Taylor Boulevard on the south side of the property and maintains appropriate setbacks from the road. No objections or concerns were identified by township staff or any other external agency. And please note that Sean Ogilvie from Forbes Brothers is in attendance at the meeting and is also available to answer questions. Madam Mayor, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. I will now ask Sean Ogilvie from Forbes Brothers Limited to present information regarding this application. On behalf of the applicant, Mr. Ogilvie, please proceed with your presentation.
Hello, Madam Mayor, members of council. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I don't have too much to add. I had the chance to speak with one of the councillors just last week and go through a couple of concerns, as well as the last week or two have a number of discussions with Nicola, who just presented. So there's not too much to add here. In the interest of time and attention spans, I don't want to be too repetitive. So really, I'm just here in a capacity to answer any questions that might come up. The details of what have been proposed, you've seen here, so I don't think there's anything really to add to that. And so it's mainly a matter of any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And are there any questions from council on on either presentations. Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I did have a brief conversation with Mr. Ogilvie last week and a couple of conversations with Nicola. My primary concern with this tower is, or the proposed tower, is the lattice style frame, in addition to the neighboring tower and the water tower, the busyness of the skyline and the appearance of the lattice style tower. I did attend the meeting last year on behalf of some constituents, as well as myself, and voiced concerns, or not concerns, actually, just I really wanted to hopefully see that the tower could possibly be encompassed with the upcoming water tower that's to go on top of the ridge, or the bell tower. So I guess if I might, Madam Mayor, I'd like to ask some questions on those bases.
Yes, please, Sean, can you answer that?
Yes, I can. I'm not sure if I muted myself again or not. So we did chat about this, and I believe Councillor McDougall is aware. So the primary purpose of this design, the steel lattice versus any other design, is a function of the height in this case, and the height is a function of the coverage range that Rogers is trying to achieve. So just sort of as a general tenet, the taller it is, the further the signal can go. And then as you lower that, the range gets shorter and shorter, and then at a certain height, then you're contending with changes in topography, other buildings, other things that might block the signal. So just on purely the design for this exact site we're talking about, and not any alternative, above 50 meters, you're limited in design for a tower to basically steel lattice design like we proposed, or a slightly modified version of that, which would be smaller steel lattice, but then it also would require guy wire supporting anchors, and that requires a lot more land, and it's debatable whether that's any better from a visual impact point of view. So a monopole site would have to be, I've been told 50 meters is the highest. I'm sure, if someone had the money or engineering background that they really wanted to make one bigger, I guess you could make a pole bigger, but again, at a certain height, it's going to be visible kind of no matter what you do with it. I would contend that steel lattice is actually, for its height, a better design, because it's, for lack of a better description, hollow in nature. It lets light through rather than a solid object. It doesn't overall, it's tall, but it's not a massive structure in that it does not obscure a ton of the skyline. Contrasted with the monopole, generally speaking, the monopole is smaller because, again, there are height limitations, so overall the structure would be smaller. As for the other locations, so the water tower, the proposed water tower would not be completely rolled out, except for the region has ruled that out for us, I suppose. And then co-location on Bell would require a significant reduction in height that they probably would move forward with no site over using that site. What I did speak with Councillor McDougall about was whether or not a monopole would work at the current location. And as what I understand from how these meetings go and how the process works in Scugog is that with a recommendation, staff or council, I guess, can also add conditions in a letter of undertaking. And maybe in the interest of time and not having to start fresh with a new proposal, if all of council would prefer a monopole design, that the location kind of in general, since it meets many of the preferences of the town's policies, be approved, and then conditions like preference for a monopole be added to the letter of undertaking, if that's a feasible option.
Further, Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. If I might ask Councillor Wotton. I've just had some exchanges back and forth with the region, and the discussions that we had, or she was privy to, was that the region has not ruled out the possibility of using the water tower They're just not at a point in time when that can be considered at this point in time. Did I read those emails correctly, Councillor Wooten?
Councillor Watton, can you answer that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Quite frankly, Councillor McDougall, I understood that at this time it wasn't possible to put it on the water tower, and I'm not sure what the proponent's timeline is, but I mean, ultimately anything is possible, usually eventually, if you're willing to wait the timelines. And I know that there has been much consideration, but there is concern for the interference of the data getting back to the region and when they share such or co-locate on such devices. So I wouldn't want to speak for the region above what they did say, which is they haven't ruled it out. They're not going to give us a timeline, and it may be a long time down the road before Rogers could move forward with that.
Mr. Ogilvie, can you comment on the timing of that? We're not exactly sure just when that water tower is going up. When, what kind of time do you have that is it sooner the better or what?
Generally speaking, sooner the better. But I mean, to Rogers' advantage, I suppose here is they're not, it's not like a upstart brand new company who has no coverage and they're scrambling to get everything they can. They do have an established network, so I've not been given any deadline on this as of yet, and we've been in this process for we're coming up on a year and a half or so now. So it's not. I wouldn't want to label it as urgent, but at the same time, I think it would have to be reasonable for Rogers to consider. If the region came back with, say, 10 years, I don't think that would work. From a concurrence perspective, it's valid for 3 years. So, I mean, maybe if we use that as a gauge for what's considered reasonable, as far as the construction timeline goes, that's what the federal government allows from a concurrence recommendation before it lapses is a 3-year time period. So within that window, I guess, would be a starting point for what's reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Councillor McDougall, further questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. From the region, I think the wording was, we are unable to comment on co-location potential. Note that once we get to the stage, previous mentioned concerns such as third-party access would be able to be addressed. I know that the same water tower, almost virtually as being proposed here, in Port Hope, has a whole lot of cellular equipment on it, so it's definitely a possibility. My preference is if the water tower won't work and it's not possible to extend the bell tower up 25% as allowed, or replace the bell tower as allowed and extend 25% and put the equipment on that, or choose a higher location on a different site, which would give you probably in excess of, I think 283 meters is the peak, and 272 meters is what Bell has located their tower at and made work with a monopole. Then I would preference this location to have a monopole, if that sounds reasonable to the proponent.
Sean, would you comment on that? And then I'm going to ask Director Heritage or Councillor Watton if you have an estimate of the timeline for that water tower in that area to go up, because I'm thinking 3 years is just, I don't know whether it could be done in that time or not. So Mr. Ogilvie, could you answer Councillor McDougall's question?
Yeah. So for sure, water towers have been successfully used as a way to deploy antenna infrastructure, and I don't think we or Rogers has any objection to doing that, provided it's actually possible. So like I said, if the timeline is going to be so extended, and I don't want to say beyond 3 years can't happen. I would have to take it back to see if Rogers has a definitive date this needs to be launched by. But just for argument's sake, as you start to get beyond that, there are a couple considerations, right? So the current landowner has actually been at this with Rogers for a number of years, and not because it's his fault. I think Rogers started this sort of before Forbes' time back in 2014, and for whatever reason it was canceled and brought back and canceled and brought back. So I think at this stage, if we leave it to go to a maybe on a water tower, it is possible our current location, which does meet a number of the preferences of the policy, might be gone. That might not be an option coming back. But again, there is the option through the letter of undertaking that conditions could be added. So if the current proposal, let's just say the current proposal was recommended for concurrence with a letter of undertaking or a set of conditions that say, number one, if the region is agreeable, is a water tower doable? Work out those details. Number two, is a monopole doable at this location? Recognizing that might require a change in the height of the proposal. Would Rogers agree to that? So there's a set of, I think I guess what I'm trying to say is without completely discounting what has been proposed, I think some of these alternatives can still be explored prior to anything being built, if that made sense.
Okay, Director Heritage, did you want to comment, or Councillor Watton comment on the anticipated build of that water tower? If you know, because I can't recall right now.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I know it has changed over time in terms of the schedule, so I'm not sure what the latest schedule is, but from staff's perspective, we would certainly promote the co-location of this facility with the water tower rather than having a freestanding structure.
Councillor Watton, you got any up-to-date information that you can recall?
I would say no. I know that there are two potential locations, and I don't think one has even been finalized, both kind of close to each other. And but to Director Heritage's point, and also to Councillor McDougall's point, I also think that it would be, if it could be co-located, the less interference in sight lines and what we see is certainly would be met with my approval as well. I don't foresee that. I think at one point they were talking about the water tower for next year, but given the environment we're in and everything that has gone on, I wouldn't want to promise that was happening. So I'm not sure when that could be happening. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall, further questions?
No, not of the presenter. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Watton, did you have a question?
No, I just, no, I don't, I'll say no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kiesebrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had asked earlier, Ms. Alston was able to pose the question to Mr. Ogilvie from Forbes. I was just wondering about the cost differences between the two discussed towers, the monopole versus what's being presented to council, and what the impact would be to the success of the project if we were to ask for that.
Who are you directing the question to, Councillor Kiesebrink?
Mr. Ogilvie, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, so from like a purely a material standpoint, I mean, it's tough to compare one to the other because, like I said, the purpose of the steel lattice is mainly a function of the height. To my knowledge, there is no monopole above 50 meters. Again, with perhaps all the money and all the engineering, something could be built, but I'm not certain it would be any better looking at that type of height. If you do it the reverse, say, the tallest monopole at 50 meters and then lowering a steel lattice tower to 50 meters, I believe, let me just see if I can pull this up. The 50 meter self-supports, or a steel lattice tower at about 50 meters in height, would be just material wise for tower supply would be about $50,000 in that range. And a monopole of the same height would be about $130,000 in that range, and up actually from there. So from a material standpoint, a monopole is certainly more expensive. But I think the greater concern would be lowering the height of the tower by that amount.
So there's two issues, one being a cost increase, but the other being a coverage decrease.
Yes, that would be the case. Now, I believe you mentioned, how would that impact if you requested a monopole? And I suppose I would leave that up to council, because you can request anything, really. You can request it. We can ask Rogers, is it doable? And then you go from there, really, is it. The sort of the baseline we're going off of is that lowering the height will reduce the coverage. So that's really the impact. If council feels that impact is minimal and that the current proposal is not good, then I guess we work from that.
So you've mentioned a couple of times that we can endorse the work that's been done and just give a list of, like, a priority sequence almost, so that we can at least continue to move the application forward, the letter of undertaking. I would be in support of getting that letter of undertaking underway, because the more cell coverage we have, the more people working from home can do their business. I think a bunch of us lost cell coverage today, and it affects your ability to work. So I would be in support of pursuing the letter of undertaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Ogilvie, what's the visual advantage of a monopole? Is it white? It's obviously slimmer, I guess, right? So it's more pleasing to the eye, I take it.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your question. I would say it is subjective of what's more pleasing or not pleasing. I assume you guys are familiar with the Bell site. So structurally, yeah, the steel lattice tower will be wider at the base. It does taper towards the top, but still, it is a larger structure. The monopole is solid versus the lattice structure is hollow, so to speak. So light does get through, but the monopole is slimmer. So, it's, I guess, beauty is in the eye of the beholder in this case. The monopole can be painted. White is common, or like a flat gray, a non-reflective gray, actually tends to blend in kind of the best. But then also the other part to consider is the antenna mounts themselves.
Okay, further, Councillor Brown?
How familiar they're using what is called like a...
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
You cut out there, Sean, so I thought you were finished.
Oh, no. Well, it's more or less. Just so with the belt structure, like a monopole is kind of like a single steel pole versus a steel lattice structure. Preference is a little bit subjective. Both cases have the antennas sort of pinwheel mounted to the outside, so they stick out from the structure, which makes the monopole, in my opinion, look a little bit bigger than what the underlying support structure is. Whereas the steel lattice, the support structure, is actually the larger part of it, and the antennas tend to look smaller relatively to the structure. But again, I would say it's 70-30. People tend to prefer monopoles over steel lattice. I don't really know why. But I think generally probably that they're smaller, because most steel lattice towers you see are probably 50-meter plus, whereas most monopoles you see are probably 50 meters and below. So that could be part of it.
Okay, and are there any health concerns regarding these towers, or is that not an issue anymore, if in fact it ever was?
I assume that was a question to me.
Yes, please.
So I believe that some people still have health concerns, and I'm, to be honest, I'm not sure why I said I believe, since I get them weekly in my inbox from various applications. But there are very strict codes in Canada, and they are consistent with many international codes on radio frequency exposure limits. So ours would be similar to the United States, Japan, New Zealand, and a host of other European countries. And they are also consistent with World Health Organization limits. And basically what they are is it's an equation that takes into consideration how much power is at the facility, as in like watts to the actual antenna equipment, and then what frequencies you're using, where they're pointed. All that to say is there's a limit of what they can be in a public environment. So say ground level or around the structure and outwards from there, anywhere any member of the public can access. The limits are very strict, and Health Canada maintains as long as you're within these limits, which is actually a condition of Rogers' operating license. So long as you're within those limits, then it's perfectly safe. And actually, more often than not, when the companies provide these calculations, they're usually sort of in the 1% to 5% range. So several times below what is actually allowed. So it's quite low at ground level.
Okay, and this comes from page 2 of Nicola's report. Tower is approximately 710 meters away from the nearest residential property. That's presuming that we go ahead with what you're proposing. So 710 away from the nearest residential property. What do you know? Is there a minimum on that? And if you don't, if Nicola does, maybe?
There's no minimum in the federal regulations. So you could theoretically put a tower in a residential zone on a residential property if that was fitting or required. I know that going backwards a little bit here, that co-location is mentioned a number of times as a preference, or rooftop deployment. Very often these rooftop deployments are apartment buildings. So in that case, you are literally on top of a residential development. And in some of the alternate locations suggested, I don't know, I think they were low-rise apartment buildings being mentioned, and then similarly surrounded by residential developments. So there's no required minimum setback under the federal guidelines. And then I don't believe, perhaps Nicola could confirm, but I do not believe there are any local policies that set a setback. At most, in some jurisdictions, they set a preference. You know, that it's often it's something along the lines of 120 meters is preferred. But if for some reason, some technical reason, it had to be within that range, then it can still be approved.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, just a question in regards to co-location. On the island here, we have 3 massive towers, one from each carrier, or 2 at least. And questions often asked, why do we need 3 when perhaps we could co-locate on 1? Now, we have the Bell Tower that I understand is not ideal for the Rogers, but if we have the Bell Tower up now, we're looking at a Rogers Tower. There's a 3rd carrier. There's potentially a conversation down the road at some time for another tower. What is the best option for the township to minimize the number of masts in the air, therefore to co-locate?
So it is a requirement that all carriers investigate co-location. The trouble definitely becomes, I think often that these are viewed as sort of one-offs, like this, say, just using this proposal as an example, like, this Rogers Tower will cover, say, Port Perry, and they won't ever need any more towers. But that's not really the case. The network is made up of a series of towers, as I'm sure you understand. But more than just coverage range, there's the impact of how many people use them, which I'm sure we also realize is not only increasing in terms of who's using them, but how often and how much data they consume on these. The ability to stream video or participate what we're doing right now remotely with just your phone, if you so choose. Takes up a lot of bandwidth, and so there's going to be more and more towers. So going forward, I mean, it's tricky to say how you ensure co-location because Bell has their network and they're going to fit their future towers to best achieve their coverage objectives. Rogers has their existing towers and they're going to propose new infrastructure that best fits their network. And only where those two intersect does a really good co-location opportunity come up. Sometimes by coincidence, they're proposed close together and there's some opportunity there. But it's difficult to mandate all carriers come together. That being said, I believe some municipalities have a telecommunications plan that is different from the consultation policies that more kind of outlines sort of like the official plan, land use, and what kind of objectives and goals you have for developing lands in the town. You might have some similar structure for telecommunications. It wouldn't have to be necessarily as detailed, but it would take into consideration the preferences of your current policy, as well as where all the existing towers may be and other infrastructure that might be possible, like water towers, things of that nature, and then come up with, as carriers approach the town for new infrastructure, then that can kind of be pointed to, and you might be able to direct the carriers to these areas sort of simultaneously. I think that would be helpful. There is some due diligence on their own part that they should be investigating co-location prior to proposing a new tower. In my experience, most of the carriers are pretty good at this, but of course it's not a perfect system. Excuse me. And I think historically it was actually a little bit worse. So I'm not sure exactly what 3 towers you're referring to on the island, but if they've been there a while, that might be one of the reasons. I'm not sure co-location was always mandated, but it is now. And they also got rid of, I don't know the dates on this, but I believe at one point some carriers also had exclusivity rights, so they might put up a tower and then claim that it is theirs exclusively. You're no longer allowed to do that either. And so I think that's why all these regulations and preferences are
they want. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so it's just assuming it was the right size. Yes, they would consider it more closely because now you have the deployment height, but what you're asking there is about 750 meter shift south from where they're currently proposed. So that doesn't disqualify it outright. I think really the challenge with that Bell site, though, is the current design. And I did speak with Councillor McDougall about this. The trouble there is going to be, excuse me, whose responsibility is it to build it higher? And then who has to cover, Bell's coverage requirements while that tower is dismantled or rebuilt, or no matter what, Bell's going to have to turn its equipment off there to modify that tower. And all this to say, I'm not sure how we go about requiring Bell even do that.
No, that's fine. Okay. No, just making sure. And so if TELUS comes knocking tomorrow and wants a tower, there's nothing to say that they, I guess from what you said, that they have to look at co-location with your proposed tower as well as Bell. But if they seem that they don't fit, we could be looking at another tower in the area. Perhaps. This is obviously speculation here. But if we build your tower, if you built your tower higher, that doesn't necessarily mean that both Bell and TELUS would jump on board because it may not be the right spot. Is that right?
Yeah, it could be. So, I mean, with Bell having theirs existing, there's not a lot of motivation for them to to dismantle and move over to Rogers. But if Rogers was approved, as we've currently proposed it, and Bell is where they are, and you're saying TELUS wanted to go in the area, I think if they were reasonably looking within this area, I think pretty certainly they could find something to work for co-location. And sort of to that point, I would just add that I know monopole has been mentioned as a potentially improved appearance, but that would limit co-location capacity at the Rogers site. It's just one more thought there. So the steel lattice, being 70 meters tall, has more capacity for more carriers than a monopole would. Just pointing it out in case that was a concern down the line.
Okay, great. Thanks for your answers. That's everything.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall, your hand is still up. I don't know whether you ever took it down. Did you have another question?
I did, Madam Mayor. My question, I guess, was to Mr. Ogilvie. Just in reflection, Councillor Wotton, Director Heritage, and myself all thought co-location with the water tower would be preferential over a new tower in a different location. Tonight we have a recommendation coming forward that Scugog has no objection with a tower at this site, lattice tower at this site. If I was to make a motion to change that recommendation such that Rogers prefer, or the Township of Scugog prefer that Rogers attempt to co-locate the antenna with the new water tower, and should that not be possible, a self-supported monopole at the 41 Taylor Boulevard site would be acceptable. Would that be acceptable to Forbes?
Sorry, I muted myself again. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that order. I would maybe add a third to that if a monopole is disqualified for coverage reasons, and I would add, to the satisfaction of planning or council. I wouldn't expect that it just comes back to me and I say, oh, yeah, sorry, it didn't work. But I mean, really disqualified if they were able to demonstrate, here's the coverage expectations with the current proposal. Here's what it would be with the monopole. Here's why it does or does not work. If you were satisfied with that, then I would prefer that it be included. The original proposal be sort of the last preferred option on that list. So if it went, recommendation is for approval, subject to first co-location on the water tower. If that doesn't work, monopole. If that doesn't work, the original proposal.
Further, Councillor McDougall?
Yes, my concern is that we just go through the quick checklist that we just went through right now and say, yep, that didn't work. This didn't work. And then tomorrow we just say, we go with the lattice tower. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wotton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would support Councillor McDougall's motion if it comes forward, with the addition of what Mr. Ogilvie said about adding the third one. But I do have a question, and perhaps it's just my ignorance on the whole project. If Rogers co-locates on a Bell tower, or Bell co-locates on a Rogers tower, does that impact the competitiveness of each other and your customer base? Or will it interfere, say, if Rogers came on and because you're a little higher up, now the Bell customers may switch to Rogers? I'm just curious.
No, so I don't think that's really the case. So the only limit I would think to co-location from a coverage perspective would be if there were interference between the two frequencies. So I'm not sure what frequencies Bell's using at this site, but if for some reason Rogers' equipment was incompatible, that would be an issue. But I think otherwise, it's just a matter of height and location. Rogers being on Bell or Bell being on Rogers, so long as it's in the right location with the right height, it doesn't matter. If it's a Bell tower to start and Rogers goes on it, the only real consideration there is that Rogers pays rent to Bell.
Okay, so as long as it's a different frequency.
Yeah, it's okay. Generally fine, and they do share towers. It's not, it won't change, how their networks function. I would highly doubt that, if Rogers built the tower they're proposing here, that Bell customers would jump ship. I'm sure Bell has planned their network so that Port Perry is covered, and Rogers is doing the same. So I don't know if you've ever had the experience of switching from Bell to Rogers or Rogers to Bell, but they're similar, and they provide coverage to most of Canada, so you're pretty secure with either of them. I think the only implication from a competitive standpoint would be if that every single tower was co-located, which is just a hyperbolic sort of scenario. But if they were all co-located, then there would really not be any point in having more than one carrier because the network would be identical. So there'd be no benefit to one or the other. But for the most part, they have their individual networks, where you live, where you work, where you end up using your devices, whichever one works better for you is the one you go with. But I'm sure, as you may have experienced in your own life, that Bell and Rogers are fairly similar in how that plays out and how you're connected.
To your point, perhaps it's more noticeable in a rural area.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, Councillor Watt lives in a rural area, so.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Sean.
Thank you. I see no other questions from council. I do have a couple, and forgive me if you covered this at one point, but the proposed design is a 70-meter height structure, and the Bell Mobility site is a 50-meter structure. How high is a monopole?
So the Bell monopole is 50 meters in this case. It's my understanding that is the tallest a monopole will go. Like for most standard monopoles, I guess if there was a situation where you really needed to make one bigger, it might be a possibility, but I'm assuming it's not done because it's cost prohibitive and there's probably some structural considerations.
Okay, so the 50-meter the 50-meter monopole, that wouldn't, am I correct in saying that would not give you the coverage that you're looking for?
So it's significantly lower than what Rogers has proposed. So it would reduce the coverage that they're expecting to get. But that being said, and why I maybe suggested it should be added to the undertaking or a set of conditions that it be considered before it be outright disqualified, is that sometimes, for the sake of an approval, Rogers is willing to sacrifice a bit of what might be considered optimal for something that might still work, but is a different option or different design. So they would like to have a 70-meter self-support tower, but if council is going to reject that proposal, then their options are limited then, right? They must consider what would be approved, which seems to be a monopole.
Okay, thank you. I have one question for either Ms. Alston or Director Heritage. That was mentioned that we could put conditions in the letter of undertaking as part of the recommendations. Could one of those conditions, or could you give me an example of what the conditions be, and would one of them possibly be that in respect to Councillor McDougall's upcoming amendment, could it be that Rogers has to demonstrate that the monopole wouldn't work for them? Is this something that could be included as a condition?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that's one of the conditions that could be included in an undertaking. I guess it certainly begs the question, if Rogers is really looking for a 70-meter structure and council supports a 50-meter structure, are we going to be seeing another application in the near term from Rogers to increase the coverage area?
Sean, can you, Mr. Ogilvie, can you comment on that?
Yeah, so I could not say with absolute certainty that would happen here. And so I guess just to sort of play out this example, if the condition was added that it be a monopole, and let's just say for argument's sake, the best they could do there is 50 meters. When we take that back to Rogers, I guess they would have to provide their analysis of the situation. So they would probably say, here's the difference between 70 meters and 50 meters. And if the 50 meters doesn't achieve their target coverage objective, then it could be that a second tower is proposed. I wouldn't say that that means it's necessarily imminent. It would depend how detrimental the change or the reduction in coverage would be. But again, before anything is built here, I don't think they would say, okay, we'll build the monopole and come back next month with our next proposal. I think in providing that analysis, we would say, here's what 50 meters looks like, and here's what they would do to, say, boost that with a second site. I think that would be provided in advance.
And did you say earlier that extending a monopole from 50 to 70 meters would be less aesthetically pleasing?
So it's my understanding, I don't know of any monopole that is over 50 meters tall. So I'm not sure that a 70-meter monopole could feasibly be built. If you did build a monopole that high, so I believe at 50 meters, a monopole is about 1.2 meters in diameter. So if you increase that height, if it could even practically be done, I suspect that monopole would be quite wide, maybe in the 2-meter range. So it's still a pretty large structure, and if the height is the same, I don't know that that would be any better looking. In terms of extending the existing site, I think there'd be a lot of problems, and for practical purposes, I don't think it would really be done. The main one being, I don't think Bell would agree to it, because you'd have to shut their site down and then take their equipment off and rebuild it. I don't know what the schedule would be on that, but I'm not sure. One, I just don't think they would agree. And two, if they were going to agree, they would have to figure out some way, like what do they do with their coverage in the meantime? What happens with their customers when you turn that side off? Whose responsibility is that? Does Rogers cover that somehow? Do they put up a temporary tower? I guess the easier way of putting this is I've never seen it done. It's been brought up a number of times, and I've never seen anyone extend anybody else's tower.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. And I guess if there's one thing we've learned over the past year and a bit, it's that we need to have better coverage for students and for people working from home. So it's a difficult decision to make tonight, and I'll just leave it at that. Are there any other questions from council? Seeing none. We have members of the public who have registered to speak to this application, and I would invite Mr. Richard Wanop. Please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record, then go ahead with your presentation. Mr. Wanop.
Good evening.
Good evening. We can hear you.
Okay. Hi, Mayor and Council. I just had a few questions. Sean, did you ever do a elevation of the actual new tower as far as a drawing to scale?
I believe there's just the elevation sketch included on the survey. And then if and when it's approved, Rogers would get the engineered plans, which would all be scaled.
Right. Okay. No, I've looked at it, and I talked to you, I believe, a year ago about it and the size, and and I was a little concerned about it being down in a low spot, and you're using a lot of the tower size to get it up into a higher area. I've looked at a lot of the visual pollution from all the towers in the area, and I just think Councillor McDougall has the point is that, where you have to put them, the monopoles are so much better looking. I mean, if by the size of this tower, because you have to use, because you can't do any guiding because of the height of it, and that's why you're going with that structure, but it is a very visual in your face kind of look. I have had some discussions with Durham. They have to get going on the water tower, and they're working on doing grading to try to see which site, there's 2 sites of it, where they can put it. So they have to get going. It was supposed to have been built in 2019. And the antennas that are put on top of water towers in other jurisdictions are, to me, it's the way to go of the future, not just to put something up that's easy. That's why we've got the CN tower. It's a huge antennae. So that's one of my things. And Durham region staff might say, well, we don't know anything about it, but I really think it's time all the different politics got together, including Rogers and Bell, and said, let's just try to cohabitate with all this different stuff and make things better, because there's nothing worse than a lot of towers, especially at night. The other thing, Sean, I was wondering, on the site plan, how close is the tower to the north limit of the proponent's property?
Yes, sorry, just kind of on your first point.
Sure, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So we're not opposed to the water tower, and I believe, if I understand Councillor McDougall's amendment correctly, the idea will be to have that reassessed before going forward with this current proposal. And like you said, I guess you've seen some, and I know for sure that water towers are frequently used, and we have no problem with that. So your question was to the north. How far is it set back?
Yeah, it seems to me like it's pretty much right on the lot line.
So the tower itself, so I guess to the center of the tower, is 14 meters from the lot line. Right. And then the equipment, which would be in the northeast corner of that compound, is 7 meters to the north lot line. So I guess that would be the edge of the compound then would be about, say, 5 meters from the north property line.
Okay, so what type of a setback would create the property owner when you have a structure that's that high?
Sorry, could you clarify?
Well, what I was wondering is this going to then make setback issues for other property owners when you have a structure that high?
I see what you're saying. So like if you're going to build something on your property or any neighbor, would they have to be a certain distance away from the tower?
Yes, because
sorry, go ahead.
I just questioned because it's right at the end of his property. So I'm just wondering how close can it be to mine?
So there's no setback requirement for towers. And so vice versa, there's no setback requirement for you to this tower outside of whatever the development requirements and zoning bylaw might say for your property or any neighboring property.
Right.
So if you could put, just argument's sake, on an abutting property, a building within, well, I don't know what the setback rules are here, but say 3 or 4 feet of your property line, then the tower being there does not stop you from doing that.
Right. Okay. I guess that's the big thing is listening to the conversation, and it's been a lot of good discussion, is that from your conversation, I think you're saying that as long as you keep the process going, then there's no reason why this couldn't be dug into a lot more and try to get yourself, Durham region, and the town on board to put it into the water tower, because the water tower has to get built. And from what I'm hearing, it's, they want to get started on construction within a year. So if you can get this going in an agreement or something with somebody, it sounds like Roger would be appeased within a 3-year period. Is that correct?
Yeah, so 3 years is my estimate, but I think really what it is, and the reason why I've proposed, and perhaps Councillor McDougall has proposed structuring this way, is it provides some motivation to Rogers, right? So rather than say, no, we don't like it, try this. What you're kind of saying to the proponent is start over, which means potentially finding, a new lease, a new location, new design, redo the surveys, redo the stuff, re-go through public consultation, all that to say, they still might not, some people still might not like it. So I think this structure is potentially good. Approval structure, because, you're not saying don't do it. You're saying it's a good idea. There are a couple preferences to be considered. And I think that would provide Rogers the motivation to investigate those, whether they work or don't work. It gives you a more definitive answer.
Right. Well, it's just that, we're coming under new guidelines for the employment lands areas and stuff. And there was worries about doing lattice and fencing for outdoor storages and stuff like that. And now we've got a huge structure that is possible, and it's going to be out in the middle, and it just makes it seem like it's kind of ridiculous for all the other stuff to make the other owners be redundant to, if we're going to go the flow and let this get put in. I would like to see if you guys could come to a term that either do the mono and see if that works, and or really push to get it on the water tower, because to me that would give you a better result at the end of the day, and it would look a lot better for the town, I think. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to make sure a few of those points were made, and thanks for taking my questions. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wanup. And Mr. Wanup, I don't believe you gave your address.
Oh, sorry, 47 Catherine Crescent in Stouffville, Ontario.
Okay, but the property in Scugog does it have an address as well?
Oh, 1520, 1595, 1580.
Okay.
Reed Street, sorry.
Reed Street. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Be safe.
Yes, you too. Thank you very much. Okay, I think that exhausts everything. And are there any other questions from council for Mr. Wanup or staff? Seeing none, that completes our public meeting tonight. And we have the report, and it's there for your reading. Have you got it there yet, Sandra? Okay, and Councillor McDougall, you wanted to speak to this or make an amendment?
Sorry, I had to find my microphone. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would, Madam Mayor. Would you like me to make a motion to put this on the table?
Yes, you could do that, please.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to put this on the table with the following amendment. Sorry, the amendment is that Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada be advised that the Township of Scugog prefer that Rogers co-locate the new proposed antenna on the Region of Durham water tower to the east. Should this location be ruled out as not a technological viable option, then a monopole would be acceptable at 41 Taylor Boulevard.
Councillor McDougall, did you provide that to our staff before?
I just sent it to Sandra.
Okay. And would that be, is that changing item number 2 there on the?
Yes, it is, Madam Mayor.
Pardon?
Yes, it is, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Can we get that up, Sandra? I know it would take you a minute or so, but.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I don't seem to have received that from Councillor McDougall.
Councillor McDougall, can you try to send it again? This is, because we are in virtual, it's always good to get these amendments to staff beforehand.
Yes, I understand, Madam Mayor. The proposal to from the proponent to adjust this as a letter of undertaking had me adjust my amendment from just a straight monopole to the proposal that we have them explore the water tower as part of my amendment. I apologize for not having that sent to Sandra earlier.
Perhaps we could take a break and then we could get the amended motion up. So it is 9:02. Perhaps if we get back here at 9:10, would that be agreeable to everybody?
I agree.
Okay, that takes it. Does that work for you, Ms. Frey?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we'll be back at 9:10.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience, and I'll call on our clerk to take the roll call, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Watton, are you present?
I am present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall, are you present?
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guido, are you present?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ross, are you present?
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kiesenbrink?
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Present.
Great, thank you. Madam Mayor, we have quorum.
Thank you very much. And now I think we've got the motion, and it's already amended. So Councillor McDougall has made the motion. Councillor Watton has seconded it. Is it possible to get that motion up now, Sandra? Or read it? Okay, that's great. It's up there for everybody to read. I'll give you a second to read it, or I will read it out loud. The report DEV 2021-009 proposed telecommunication tower 41 Taylor Boulevard be received. And 2, that Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada be requested to co-locate the new proposed antenna on the new region of Durham water tower to the east. And should this location be ruled out as a technologically viable option, then a monopole would be acceptable at 41 Taylor Boulevard. And that 3, that the original proposal or steel lattice design be approved if the monopole is disqualified for technical reasons to the satisfaction of the township. And 4, that the applicant be requested to provide the township with a letter of undertaking addressing the matters raised in staff report number DEV 2021-009 and any concerns identified through the public consultation process to the satisfaction of the Director of Development Services. Is that your motion, Councillor McDougall and Councillor Watton?
That is my motion, yes, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Watton?
Sounds good to me. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion?
It looks like Mr. Ogilvie might have one.
Mr. Ogilvie, please go ahead.
All right, sorry, not to add to the confusion here. There was a bit of chat during the break. I think there's just confusion on the how this is written. So that point number 2, that Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, I think it should be Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada be advised that Rogers has been requested to co-locate the new.
Yes, you're right. You're right. I that would be acceptable. Councillor McDougall, is that fine as a friendly amendment?
That is, yes, muchly accepted. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Watton?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ogilvie, for pointing that out. Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none. Are you ready to, you can do that electronically, Sandra? Or can we just verbally call the vote?
I can open the voting, Madam Mayor, electronically.
Thank you.
Councillor Watton, waiting for your vote.
Trying to find it, so I'll vote in favor. Thank you.
And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ogilvie, and thank you, Council. And Nicola, thank you. We will now move to 11.3, the zoning bylaw, Z01 2020 9494952, Canada Inc. operating as 1060 Stables. And it's there for you. Do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Watton, seconder. Councillor McDougall, questions or comments on this? Seeing none, I see we did have Mr. Gordon on the line today. I don't know whether he's still there, but welcome back to Scugog Township Council, and lovely to have you here. Don, Mr. Gordon, do you have you had your hand up? Did you want to say something about this application?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to say that we have reviewed the staff report and concur with the recommendations. And if there are any questions, we have Michael Pegg and Bashir Khan, two of the owners of 1060 Stables, present, as well as Trevor Copeland, our noise consultant.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Gordon or our other guests? Seeing none, it's a very thorough report. Oh, Councillor McDougall.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a brief question. I just wanted to, I did read the report and the subsequent documents. I just wanted to make sure that all the noise concerns have been addressed as identified by the neighbors. Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Gordon? Our staff? Ms. Alston?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, we have both our staff and the consultant and the owners and the noise consultant have been communicating openly with the neighbor to the east and are working together. She has, from my understanding, read the staff report, and we have advised that we will keep her involved throughout the site plan process as well.
Thank you. It seems that all of the, I think all of the comments here are about noise, and I see that the proponents and staff have worked very hard to address all of those concerns. So thank you very much to everyone for doing that. Anything further, Councillor McDougall?
No, I thank very much the report and the thoroughness. As always, I'm excited to see any agritourism potentials in Scugog taking place. The only other concerns I saw was road-related concerns, and I'm certainly not going to talk about that tonight. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you all.
Thank you very much, Councillor McDougall. Yes, this is a pretty exciting project, just a little different from what we've seen recently, and it's quite exciting for those people who love horses and love equestrian. So I think we're ready now to call the question, Ms. Frey. Motion? We did get a motion on that, didn't we? Yes. All those in favor, will you call the question, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillor Watton, are you able to vote?
For some reason, no, so I'll vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously, and I wish you good luck. Lots of horseshoes to the proponents. So thank you very much. And we'll move on now to 11.4. This is the zoning bylaw amendment, and Sandra has put it up there for us. Do I have a mover, please? Mover? Well, it looks like Mr. Gordon is up there with his hand up. Okay, Councillor McDougall and Councillor Guido. And can you call the question, please? Are there any questions or comments on this? Miss, oh, gee whiz, I'm getting tired. Councillor Kiesebrink.
No, Madam Mayor, that was just to move it. I apologize. I took it down.
Okay, Councillor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few questions for Ms. Prentice, if she's still on the line. Let me just open. It is attachment number 4, the draft plan conditions. I just have a few questions on those conditions. Specifically, sorry, I'm just trying to open it up now. Specifically, condition number 6, what does the township or what does this plan define as a major rainfall?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the condition doesn't define that. I'd have to reach out to our development engineering staff unless Director Heritage knows, but that would be addressed through the detailed design as part of the engineering review.
Okay, thank you. And number 13, the owner shall agree in the subdivision or pre-service agreement that all lots or blocks to be left vacant for longer than a specific specified length of time. Is that the same idea? We'll have to look into that further, or do you know now what that specified length of time is?
So we do leave it open in the condition to have those further discussions. What is in our subdivision agreement template currently is 30 days.
30 days. Okay, thank you. And do we know at this point if there's any trees of significance on that property?
There has been one butternut that has been identified on the site that would be subject to a butternut health assessment under the Endangered Species Act.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? I have something on the same attachment 4, number 43. It talks about having on display for, so it's available to potential purchaser, different things like street utilities, what locations of things. I'm wondering if we should be adding in there what the busing is for schools. I mean, obviously they don't need anything for Prince Albert Public School, but if there's an elementary school, the Catholic elementary school or the high school, I think the potential purchasers need to know if there's busing available for those schools. So I wonder if we could add that in there.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we're happy to make that amendment.
Yeah, that's probably something we should put in all of these, because I know in the past that people have believed that they have busing and sometimes they don't, and then it comes back to bite you. So that would be great. Thank you. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, will you call the vote, please, Ms. Frey?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is 12.1 correspondence, and I understand, Councillor Watton, that you wanted to address this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would just like to make the motion that we receive this for information tonight and to advise council that next week I will be bringing forward a more fulsome motion in the hopes of supporting the Mr. Wanup's request.
Okay, so you're giving notice of motion tonight.
I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Seeing none, you've made the motion. Oh, no, it's not. Motion to receive. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ross. That's great. Thank you very much. No more questions or comments on this. Seeing none, Sandra, will you call the vote, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We do not have any new business or general information, as I understand it. And there's no closed session. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Guido, seconder. Councillor Kiesebrink. Ms. Frey, will you call the vote, please?
Open for voting, Madam Mayor.
And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. I know that the pressure's been on you, well, for over a year, but in particular the last few weeks. So thank you very much for the work that you've presented tonight and for all that you do each and every day. And that's all staff, not just senior staff. It's been a horrendous couple of weeks for staff and council. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, what there is of it, and we'll say good night.